But you've got to hold your line without being insulting. So there's another tactic I call this, it's like the Jedi Knight tactic. It's almost like, you will sign the paper and close the deal. You will pay me my full commission. So one of the other big weapons is humor. So there's this one agent I meet with all the time. She's always laughing. Oh yeah, you got to pay me all this money, and then he's going to pay me. She's laughing this whole time. I'm like, what are you laughing about? My client's not going to pay for those repairs. And she goes, yeah, it's fine. Oh, it'll be good. You know, where are you going for the holidays? So humor is something that really breaks the ice. So you got to be really careful with sarcasm, because sarcasm can really piss somebody off. But if you can use humor and distraction. So sometimes what happens is I'll be in an appointment and a client will say, well, you know, in terms of getting a listing, and they'll say, hey, you know, I just met with Berkshire Hathaway or Keller Williams, and they'll do the deal for 5%. And I go, oh, great. I said, that's really great. That's nice that they would do that. I said, I'm not really willing to do that. So do you want to put the property on next week? Or how do you want to do the staging? So my point is, we are taught as kids, when I ask you a question, you answer it. How often do you see politicians, they don't answer questions?
Right. All the time.
How many of you like to ask somebody for money or a discount? Raise your hands if you'd like to. Loved, doesn't mean you like to get the discount. Everybody likes a discount. Do you enjoy asking somebody that gives you a bid for $1,000, you say, hey, can you do it for 900? All right, so that's very, very few of us that likes to ask people for money. Your clients don't like to ask you for money either. They're really wealthy. They're embarrassed many times. So if you think of it this way, if you can get a client to have to ask you 3 times for money, they'll drop it. So you don't have to answer the question. You got to change the argument, change the story, set the table. You want to be the one behind finessing, and that's why it's a finesse, because it's not a confrontation. Will you lower your commission by 0.5 point?
Yes.
See, now you've answered my question, right? You don't want to answer the question. You say you have to get these certain phrases you want to come up with, like, well, I'm not really inclined to do that with all the money I'm spending on marketing. I'm not really inclined to do that if you want me to really do everything I possibly can to get your house sold. And where do you get these? You get them from hearing people saying them, being in meetings with people. I call Steve all the time. Steve Games, I go, Steve, hey, I'm having trouble. If I'm having trouble, of course, which is never, right? No, so if I'm having trouble with a deal, I say, Steve, how do you handle this argumentation? What do? I call Don. I go, Don, I'm working on a deal. You got some approaches for me that may work? I got to finesse this deal. I've got to get the client to do such and such. And they will give you a full kind of line because they have so much experience in the business. That's why you join a team. You join the team because the person that's leading the team understands how to finesse people and knows how to use these weapons in the proper situation at the right time. I had a meeting yesterday with an agent, and we were trying to put an offer together with a buyer, and she said, well, you know, do you have any suggestions for us? And so I was on the phone, and there were 3 agents that work with her, and she's a good friend of mine, so I can speak candidly with her. And I said, the most important thing in this meeting is when I ask a question, that none of you answer it. How many times you've been in a meeting with another agent, you ask the client a question, and the agent answers for the client? How many of you has experienced that? It drives me crazy. I feel like saying, I didn't answer the fucking question, don't answer it. Because, number one, I already know the answers to the question. I'm not an idiot. Most of the time when I'm asking clients questions, I'm doing several things. Number one, I'm fact checking the client. How do you know if somebody has money when you're in these large transactions? You don't. You don't always know. And how many of your clients would you like to say, send me a proof of funds before you go see this house or buy a property? They're not even going to work with you. This is luxury real estate. This is not, hey, call my lender and get approved. These are all cash deals, 50, 60% of all our deals. So what you have to do is you have to do your homework. You've got to Google. You've got to find all bunches of little details. Then you know those details. Then you ask them questions of the details that you already know. And you're fact checking to see if they're bullshitters or not. If they're truthful, they're going to match up. Without you having to ask them who you are, where you, well, I'd get up on Google. That wasn't really who you were. Yeah, I mean, you can't do that with people. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're constantly checking everyone's information. So I have an agent that I work with all the time, and she's a super know-it-all. And I'm constantly telling her, be quiet. Don't answer my question. Well, it's so obvious I go, I know what the answer was. I'm testing the client. I'm finding things out. I also, very often in a meeting, you tend to want to spew all that you know. Because you want to show people that you're knowledgeable. You have to show people you're knowledgeable. Why are they working with us if you don't know the market? So there's a time and a place for that. Right? All right, so I'm going to talk about one more thing about setting the table, which is a really interesting thing we did recently. So we have a property, and this goes to price reductions. So what you're going to find is that as I go through the stories, we're going to be talking about different scenarios of the negotiation and how these tools apply. Okay? And then as we go through, I'll list more and more tools. So I have a client who is in commercial real estate, and she knows everything about everything. She's super controlling. She is a wonderful woman. I coached her son. I was a professional tennis player, and I coached her son, and I helped him he went to Carnegie Mellon. He's a VC up in Northern California, just a brilliant family. So difficult to talk factually about things, way smarter than I am. So, when we talk about her real estate, she has a price she wants to put it at. How many of you go to a listing appointment with comps?
With comps?
Comps. How many of you bring comps?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Why?
Gotta know what you're talking about.
You know the market.
Yeah.
What does your client list the property at?
Always higher.
Property at? Whatever they
What
think.
they for it.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So what, do the comps matter?
Yes.
No, they don't.
No.
They don't matter in this type of transaction. Because when you're selling properties upwards of 4, 5, 6 million, there aren't that many comps.
Yeah.
All the properties are so unique because it's, does it have a view? Does it have land? What about the toilet that we got from Guam? What about this we got from Italy? I mean, what is the value of that versus that? And everyone has a love affair with their home. I don't even bring comps anymore because it's just been a colossal waste of time. If somebody wants to look at comps, I open up the MLS and I pull up the comps in front of them because what do they think about your comps? What is their perception of your comps?
They're not accurate.
You're full of crap.
Right.
You manipulated the comps.
That's it.
You manipulated the comps. The only way to show them a comp is to show them a search engine. So I pull up the MLS and I say, what's your square footage? And I go, what are appraiser values? Appraiser values is anything within 15%. So what's another big weapon? Numbers. Numbers don't lie, but they never tell the truth. Right? So you should know your numbers, but when you go into the meeting, you've seen all the numbers and everything, but it's important the process. Another big weapon, process. Right? Process. Why process? Because they want to know that you have a brain. They want to know that you can go through and look at comps. So now you're going through there and you're looking up the comps and they're telling you that this house that was completely redone 3 years ago that has a swimming pool, a spectacular view, is much nicer than theirs that was done 15 years ago because theirs has this fence or this pool or something that you're going, well, wait a minute. Now you can have a real discussion about what's actually happening. Because now they see your process. So then you go through the whole process, and then what do?
Don't listen.
Yeah, what do? They tell you what they want you to sell, price it at. So what I usually do is I get ahead of it and I said, look, this is what the comps are, but that's irrelevant because they already think that. So I say the comps are irrelevant. What's your price goal? Right? So they say, my price goal is, let's say it's $4.5 million, and it's a $3.5 million property, which is where I was with this woman. So she did the same thing to me. She knows every single house in Rancho Pacifico, every single owner. Every time somebody comes through there, she's so smart and so on top of it. I have a showing. She'll call me after and said they visited this, and this property. I go, how do you know that? She goes, well, I followed them. And then I went and asked the owner of the property what they thought.
That's good.
And I said, you know what? That's awesome. Thank you for all that information. I truly appreciate it. And I said to her, look, we had the listing 8 or 9 months, and I had a partner on the deal. And my partner was one of the agents that pounds the client. Every single time she gets on the phone with them, she tells them every comp, everything that's wrong with her house, how she's overpriced. So what did my client do? Fired her. I told the agent 3 months before she fired her, I said, you need to stop doing that or she's going to fire you. And I said, and you can't be mad at me because I'm telling you. I told her every week. Mm-hmm. I said, you need to have 4 or 5 conversations in a row where you never talk about price. You just need to talk to her, get to know her, hang out with her. I know her very well. She's a lovely, lovely woman. She would cut off her right arm for me because of what I did with her kids and her family. But here's the way I approached her. So she wanted to fire the other agent. I said, I don't really agree with that. And if we do, we got to pay her something because she's worked hard and she's a good person. I said, it's not fair. I said, I'm not taking that listing away from her just because you don't get along with her. She's a very good, reputable agent. Number one, she likes that I care about people. All right? So I'm winning her over. I'm winning her trust. She trusts me with her child. So I said to her, this was after 8 or 9 months, and I spent thousands of dollars. I said, look, this was end of the summer. I said, I'm not going to ask you ever for a price reduction. She goes, what? I go, you're intelligent. You know that, look, here are the comps. You know every single property in the area. You're priced 25% above every other property in the market. You're just not a seller. When you become a seller, let me know. We'll sell your house. Yeah. I said, but if you want me to keep marketing it, keep showing it, I love you, I love your family, we're never going to have an issue. I'm not going to argue with you. But let's just have intelligent conversations about the market. I have no problem with that. I said, but when you really want to sell, call me. Well, I want to sell. I go, well, I mean, how many properties have you sold in your life? She's like, well, I have 15 commercial properties and my family's been in commercial. I go, how do you sell your properties? Is it numbers or is it because somebody falls in love with your building? She goes, no, it's always numbers. I go, we're in a numerical age. Everybody knows every comp. Everybody knows every price per square foot. You're 25% above the market. People may love your house, but they're just not willing to pay that number. I said, so just when you want to lower the price and you want to sell it, call me. Say, I got to go to another appointment, because I want to leave her thinking. I don't want her to feel satisfied. I want her dissatisfied with the conversation. Like she's the idiot, even though she's not. She's really smart and super successful. She loves her house because she raised 2 kids there. So I didn't call her for a couple days. She called me. She goes, I want to lower my price. I go, well, I'm not sure it's a good time. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I think we should lower the price. I said, well, let me look at the numbers. I'll call you back. I hadn't seen the numbers. I didn't know the numbers. I mean, I was like, oh my God, we're so high priced. Why even look at the numbers? I'm just paying every month. My numbers are marketing costs. I know those numbers. Anyway, long and the short of it is, we got a price. We got it below $4 million. I showed her that below $4 million, there were so many more sales than above $4 million. And I said, look, this is the number we should go at, and this is the pricing strategy we should use. So what did I do? By telling her that she was intelligent, which she is, by telling her in a very nice way, when you're ready to sell, we'll sell. Because luxury listings, it's about time. People aren't ready to lower. They want to try and see if they can get the bigger number, right?
Yes.
A lot of people do. They can't blame them for that. I would do the same. I just don't know that I would put 25% above the market. I don't do that. So I set the table for a future price reduction 3 years earlier. 3 months earlier. Do you see what I'm saying? 3 months earlier, I had the conversation. I befriended her. I gave her confidence. I joked with her. I showed her the numbers. I showed her the process. And she came to the intelligent conclusion. I had 3 clients last week ask me for price reductions based on the exact same strategy. Because you know why? Anyone that has $5 or $10 million is smart, or very lucky, or they inherited it. But the majority of our clients, they know numbers. They know how to make money. They know the market very often now better than we do, because they know I have 25 listings. Now, when I go look at the property that I'm going for the meeting, I've looked at it and I know it. I know markets. I understand business. But if you call me and say, hey, what's the most recent sale of a property? We have a property in Escondido right now. I haven't looked it up. I haven't researched it. But there's been one sale in 5 years over $2 million. Our property's priced at $2 million. Why did the people call me? Because I'm breaking records in other markets. I'm marketing in a very different way. So my point is that you're going to have to understand the market at the moment you're asked about it. You need to be able to very quickly look through the numbers and know. And once you've done that, our markets, it's not like the stock market. Our markets move slowly in number of sales, types of sales. And what I do is I put an agent on it. I say, hey, follow this market. Or I put a search engine that pops up so that when the client calls me, I very quickly pull up the search engine and look at the recent sales, recent actives, and all that. And I kind of know what's happening. I don't need to know perfectly. And I have no problem saying that, hey, I've been watching that market, but I really need to dig into the numbers. Let me call you back either tomorrow or later today when I can give you a more intelligent response. So 3 clients that I all explained to them, I said, look, I'm not going to ask you for the price reduction. I just want to tell you, New York's fallen. I was just, on the phone with an agent from there. They have amazing, unreal inventory, and prices are dropping. There's no more Chinese investment like there used to be. Texas is hurting. I was just in these are all true stories. I was just in San Francisco.
Very true.
There's inventory in the center of San Francisco. I haven't heard that. I was there. I was dumbfounded. There's condos in San Francisco that are sitting there. There's too much inventory. What do you think is going to happen here?
Same thing.
So I said, it just depends on your goal. I said, what's your goal? Would you like to sell or would you like to chase? It's really up to you. Do you want to chase the market or do you want to get ahead of it? 3 of them called me. They asked me for price reductions. Let's sell the property. So by the whole idea of getting a price reduction for a lot of people is really stressful. What you want to realize is I've invested in this, my friend's property, because she is my friend, at least $20,000, $25,000 already. And I've had the market, that property maybe a year and a half, 2 years. That's what I'm in it. Do I want to sell it? Yeah. But I'm not the decision maker. I'm the advisor. I'm helping them through a process. I'm not an adversary. Now, I will tell you this. We dropped it to 3,995. We got into escrow with a great buyer. Eric Chodorow brought a buyer. And one thing you want to know and you want to become aware of is agents that have buyers you're going to buy. A buyer who's going to buy buys. And it's so true. And you very often see it, and you don't see that many buyers in these price points because the number of sales. So he brings a buyer. I know that Eric's a closer. We get into escrow. I had to go out of town. So the buyer says, is super efficient person, super, analytical, anal, whatever you want to call him, schedules like 5 or 6 inspections the first day. My client goes, no, I'm available all week, but only one inspector at a time, because I want to be there with the inspector when they go through my home. I said, okay. So I call Eric on the phone. He goes, that's just crazy. What are you talking about? I said, you know what, Eric? I read the contract, and I don't see anywhere in the contract where it states that you can have multiple inspectors come through the property at any one moment. Do you see it? It's not there. It's for sure it's not there. But instead of telling him no, I said, I can't find it. Can you find it? Well, no. I said, so my client's right. Is she saying, look, you do any inspection you want, but you can only bring one inspector at a time. They have a right to do that. So what's the other thing that's really important in negotiating? Know the rules of the game.
Ooh.
So, how do you know the rules of the game?
Read the contract.
Call Lupe. There you go. No, I'm not kidding. You need to call somebody that does not make mistakes. You know why? Because we're so busy in the field, we want to know our contracts. Do we know the contracts as well as you, Lupe, Rick, who's our other broker?
Valerie.
Valerie. So all I do is I call Rick before Lupe was in our office, because I didn't really feel like in our office at the time. I could call Steve. I don't even think he's read a contract. I'm kidding. No, he knows the contract. But my point is, I would call Rick if I wanted to ruin a deal. Why? Because Rick will tell you exactly to the letter of the law what it is. Is that what you're going to negotiate in the field? No. What you're going to do is you're going to understand the rules of the game, and you're going to finesse the client through the situation knowing that you're never breaking the law. Right? Did I break the law with what I told Eric? Was I confident in my information? Yes, I actually personally read that in the contract. I know the contracts very well. I read them. I read the contract every year, and I love the legal part of the business. It's a really fun part for me. Not everybody likes that, but you don't have to be perfect at it. How often do we probably talk every 2 or 3 weeks about something in the contract. And Lupe is really good about being right. That's why I use the escrow officer I use. I don't love her. She's right. I want somebody in that area of the, like title, escrow, contracts. You want the proper information, because then you know your exposure, right? So then I said to Lupe, well, we're trying to close this deal, but we're probably going to go past the contingency period, and we're not going to get everything signed off. What's my exposure? Right? What's my exposure? Always know your exposure. Doesn't matter what the contract says. It matters what the penalty is if you go beyond that part of the contract. Okay, that's really the key. Now you know the rules of the game. Now you know the penalties as well. Now you can negotiate with confidence. So I got Eric on the phone, and I said, okay, well, it says that we have to make the property's available. It's just not available to 3 people at the same time. Can't do it, and you can give reasons, I've got kids or dogs or whatever. So anyway, so long and the short is we work through that. So I'm out of town for 2 days. The inspector shows up with a partner. And now there's 2 people at the property. So my agent is there, and she's trying to finesse, and my client is saying, no, absolutely not. You can't do it 2. I told you 1, and she's going, and my agent finesses the situation, takes one of the inspectors outside, chats with them, and says, hey, I'll do the outside, you the inside. Everything's great. Anyone got a phone? Here, hand me your phone. My client goes like this. The inspector starts inspecting. She goes like this. And films the guy. Like this, as he inspects the client. And like this. And he's like, I'm out of here. Bye. Killed the deal.
Wow.
Wow.
What house did the guy buy? The one next door? He bought the next door neighbor's house.
To spite him.
No, because it was a better deal and he wanted to live in the neighborhood. And now my client, she called me and she said, well, do you think I killed the deal? I go, no, you probably acted perfectly. Let me call 3 inspectors and find out if they would allow you to film them. because next time we get into escrow, we want to make sure that we don't lose, that the buyer doesn't walk away. I said, you know what? I called 3 inspectors and they all won't allow you to inspect your house. So I said, I just think you have to decide if you want to sell. Because if you don't want to sell, you can't get through inspections. And because no one's going to allow you to do that because everyone posts everything online. She calls me at least once a week to apologize for her behavior. She's a really nice lady. She just loves her house and she's so attached to it and she's so controlling of it that it's got to go a certain way. And she's like, I'm just kicking myself about that. Did I ever tell, the agent on the deal with called her and told her you blew the deal.
Wow.
She's done. She's gone. So how long have I had that listing? I've had it a year and a half. And people say, oh my God, you got this listing a year and a half. I sold 5 deals this year between 3 and 5 million that I had over a year and a half. You just gotta hang in the pocket on these deals, okay? You gotta hang in the pocket. You gotta use all of your tools and you gotta be patient in the luxury market.